all eyes will be on the August existing home sales report that we get in just about 3 weeks. The potential is we could see the lowest existing home sales report in a 30-year window. So let's talk about it ahead of time. Let's talk about why, and let's talk about when we might be able to see things turn around, and hopefully it's in short order. So join me as usual on a journey of data as we look at the facts going back 30 years of existing home sale data in this country. So first and foremost, what is existing home sales? Well, existing home sales is exactly what the report name says. It is not new construction, existing housing sales report. So any home that is existing, not a new construction home that is sold. So let's look at a 30-year window of what this looks like. In July, we had an extremely low reading of existing home sales. We had a low reading of 3.65 million homes sold in America. And in fact, in the last 30 years, there's only been 3 other reports that came in lower than this. Most recently, right here in December of 2022, we had a reading of 3.60 million homes sold, a little bit lower than we saw in the month of July. Prior to that, you have to go all the way back to July of 2010, right here, to get a 3.45 million homes sold reading. Prior to that, we have to go all the way back to April of 1995 to get a 3.46 million home reading. So July's numbers were extremely low, and we do expect, with interest rates in the month of August hitting an all-time high, that we could see an August report come in somewhere similar to the 3.45 million mark, potentially lower, which would put us at a 30-year low. Now, the news media is going to run with this. They are going to absolutely make all the news about it. And yes, it is not a great report, but there is silver linings for us in the South. Now, you may be watching this in the Midwest, in the West, in the North, and saying, what the heck are you talking about? Well, I live in the South. My team is based out of the South. The referral partners we work with are primarily in the South. And if you're in the South, I've got some good news for you. Let's look at the data specifically broken down by region. And it's really interesting to see. So first, I want to look at the Northeast. Now, this is numbers right here. These numbers here we're looking at. This is based on the July report. So the Northeast makes up right about 25%. And I rounded these numbers about 25.5% of the existing home sales report. If you go to the Midwest, they're sitting at about 11% of the report. If you go out to the West, well, you're looking at about 18% of the report. In the South, we've got a whopping 45.5% of existing home sales are happening in the South. And historically, if you look at this green bar right here, this whole green bar, this is all the South, and it's historically been higher. So living in the South, working in the South can be a great blessing in a time where existing home sales are going down. So lead us into what's going on with existing home sales. Well, we know that it's due to the interest rates. Interest rates are simply pushing a lot of buyers to the sidelines, pausing. And it's also creating inventory issues where sellers, if you own a home right now and you've got a 3.5% interest rate, move up buyers are kind of put on pause right now because you may have a $500,000 home right now and you want to move up to that $600,000 home, but it's a double up in payment due to where interest rates are at. So the big question becomes, when are interest rates going to go down? And that is the $1 million question that if anybody can properly answer, just bet on the markets because you'll have the golden information. But let's look at data. So I want to look at Consumer Price Index, CPI report. I talk about this all the time. This is our measurement of inflation. So headline, this is what our lovely Fed Chair President Jerome Powell initially was focusing on getting down because that's the pain point that America sees. It peaked out at a 9% inflation rate. And today we sit at a 3.2. That's a major drop in inflation. However, the Fed has shifted and they've shifted their focus to core inflation. And core inflation is all of headline, but you strip out food and energy costs. And the Fed has stripped this out and said, we want to focus on core inflation specifically because we don't believe that through monetary policy, we can control food and energy prices the way we can the other household items. And I tend to agree with them on that. If you look at how food and energy can be priced, so much of it is internationally, globally. Weather, there's so many things. OPEC can make one decision on energy and change the energy prices. A storm like we have going on right now in the Gulf of Mexico could take out oil supply for a significant amount of time, raising oil prices. Those aren't things that the Fed's monetary policy can really control. So if you look at the peak of core inflation was at 6.6%. We've only moderated down to a 4.7%. This is why Fed Chair Powell has such a strong stance on continued rate hikes and continued cuts, because he wants to see this number come down substantially. Now, what we need to talk about is core inflation. 43% of this entire number is made up of shelter. What is shelter? Shelter is rent. What people are paying for rents. It's also owner's equivalent rent, and a small portion of that is also made up of rent away from home or staying away from your home, Airbnb costs, things like that. If you're in the real estate market, you know rents have come down. Rents have come down substantially over the last year. Owner's equivalent rent to me is the absolute silliest calculation. You pick up the phone, you call a homeowner, a primary residence, and say, hey, what would you rent your house out for today? Do you not think that they're going to say the absolute top dollar? They're going to have these sky high rental prices in there, because homeowners always want more in rent than what the market will bear. That's just how it works. So if 43% of core inflation is made up by shelter, what's going on with it? Well, we know rents have been coming down, but rents have a significantly long lag time in getting into the CPI report. And here's why. Most rents are calculated on a 12-month lease. So if you call someone and say, hey, what are you paying for rent right now? If they signed their lease 11 months ago, you're going to get 11-month-old data. Now, next month, when they renew their lease, it could be 8% lower. It could be 10% lower. It could be 5% lower. But there's a huge lag time in getting rents to show up in the CPI report. If you actually take the core inflation, you take shelter out, we're down at a 1.6 when you look at everything else. Shelter is the item that is holding everything back. And we do believe in seeing shelter really start to turn the corner in about March of this year is where we started to see shelter cost and CPI come down. We do believe in the next few readings, we'll see shelter cost begin to come back in line. So be patient. Just hold on to your horses. Help is coming to the market. I do believe we're going to see core inflation make its way down over the next few months, and we're going to see some relief in interest rates. When we see relief on inflation, mortgage rates will follow suit and come down. When mortgage rates come down, we obviously will begin to see the market open back up. Buyers are on the sideline. They're not out of the game. They're simply patiently waiting for the rates to come down. So have some patience, stick with it. Don't give up just yet. And if you're in the South, you've got a big blessing that just over 45% of all existing home sales are happening right in your backyard. So get out there, make a name for yourself. These are the moments where we have to dig in, work a little harder to build and solidify relationships that are going to last us for the next booming market, which probably is not that far away. Take care.